The best way to write a good chord progression is to understand all your options and explore them. These next two lessons aim to increase the number of options that you have and show you methods in selecting the best chords for your song. In the previous lesson, we discussed building triads from the 7 scale degrees in a scale. Now I would like to introduce you to a concept called inversions. The concept is simply that you can rearrange the order of the notes in each of the chords. There's a lot of flexibility in arranging the notes, however the most important things to remember is the notes that you are allowed to use and which note is on the bottom. So if you're using the 1 chord and you arranged it with E being the bottom note, it would be notated as C over E. If you had the C chord with a G in the bottom note, it would be written as C over G. For example, if we take the 5 chord in the key of C, the 5 chord is the G major chord with the notes G, B, and D. We can rearrange those notes so it is B, D, then G. This is still the G major chord, it is simply voiced in a different way. So what are the advantages to rearranging the order of the chords? Well, in a way, the lowest note in the chord should be treated like a melody and it should follow a primarily stepwise function with just a few leaps. For a moment, we can step away from the fantasy piece that we were working on so we can try a few exercises when it comes to writing a chord progression. For the first exercise, we will have the melody sit on 1 note, E, playing a mixture of quarter notes and half notes. We will do this for 2 bars and copy it to make an 8-bar pattern. However, the melody will rise by 1 note each bar. Now we will create a moving bass line in a similar way that we would create a melody, and we would just follow the rhythm we created in the melody. But the trick is that we have to avoid the 2 notes that are closest to the melody note in the key of C. So what I mean by that is in the first bar, the note in the melody is E, so we have to avoid the notes D and F. In the second bar, the note is F, so we have to avoid the notes E and G, and so on. Now we just have to choose chords for each note in the bass line that has the note from the bass line and the melody in it. However, we must keep the bass note in the bass. So for the first chord, we have an E in the melody and a C in the bass. So which of the chords that we went over in the previous episode have both a C and an E in it? Well, the first chord is C major, or C, E, and G, and the 6th chord is A minor, which has A, C, and E. So let's go with the minor chord. We already have a C in the bass, so we will simply stack the E and A on top of it, so we end up with an inverted A minor chord or 6th chord. The only chord with B and E would be the 3 chord or E minor, which has E, G, and B in it. We will again rearrange it so that B is on the bottom, and we will continue this until there is a chord for each note. If you are a little more advanced and you know your scales really well, I recommend you try doing this with a few different keys. While doing this exercise, you probably noticed that there weren't very many choices that had the 2 notes that you needed. Most of the time you probably had only 1 choice. So we can explore a few more chord options in the next part of this lesson.